Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you joining me today. As a follow-up to my previous video on the 2024 tactics that were huge and game-changing, I want to talk about what I'm going to be doing in 2025. What my core key changes or optimizations are that I'm looking to do and the intended results that I'm looking to get. With that, let's dive in. So 2025 for me is going to be a little bit of a philosophical change. Where I'm going to be switching gears away a little bit from maximization into optimization. And what I mean by there is I think I've overall reached my maximum output from a consistent long-term sustainability basis. What I mean here is doing the 6 days a week, doing 16-hour days, doing the 53 minutes on, 17 minutes off of the Pomodoro cycles. These sorts of things, I could potentially push a little bit more. But I think I'm at a stage where I'm happy with my overall output, but I now want to optimize in order to free up a little bit of time and then provide more maximization with that time saved. And so, to give a couple different examples here of things that I'm meaning about the optimization versus the maximization. When I look at my business and the career coaching, one of the things that I'm doing right now is manual management of my CRM and all the contacts in it and how people are getting funneled in there, etc. And so I am building out integrations to have it automatically flow to say, hey, they came in through this funnel, input the information here, tag them here, go into this automation, do this email follow-up sequence, these sorts of things. Even from, other aspects of email automation and email campaigns, following up on people who maybe didn't schedule a consultation, having that just go through an automated flow. And when they schedule, it's bailed out. Things that are just reducing my manual work that's repetitive and doesn't necessarily require this ginormous personal touch. It has to be coming from me, human, and to a human to human one-to-one. That's one of the ways that I'm looking at there. Or even on, my personal life. How can I maybe leverage some of those Pomodoro breaks to do a little bit more manual labor and stuff around the house? Because that's kind of my Q1 objective around, in my personal life is I have some stuff around the house I need to do. What can I break into 15-minute chunks to allow me to knock that out? So that's kind of where I'm looking for is ways to optimize in order to free up time to maximize. And so I think I'm going to end up at 2025 with a few hours per week. So if I'm looking at my 96-hour week total, what my actual goal, going back to a previous 2024 change of being specific, is I would like to free up at least 1 hour per day. Give me an extra 6 hours back across those 6 days. If I've optimized to that degree, I think that would be huge. My holy crap, nice to have goal would actually be 12, would be 2 hours per day. That would be massive. If I could get 2 hours back and backfill that with more output in 2026, game changing. Along those same lines, tactic number 2. So that's more like the overall philosophical one, but I'm going to make it tactic number 1. But tactic number 2, that's in support of that. So I mentioned that I use TickTick. I've made it sort of my second brain application. And one of the things I mentioned in the previous video that I'm looking to figure out how to refine is the interval of planning. So whenever I put something in there, I apply its prioritization. So it automatically gets put in the correct Eisenhower matrix quadrant, whether it's the highest priority, medium priority, low priority, or backlog. I do that from the beginning the second I put it in there. Where I don't know that I've quite hit the nail on the head yet, is at what interval do I review each quadrant, what's in there for accuracy? And then subsequently, what is my plan of achievement for either the day, the week, the month, those two intervals together? And so right now where I'm actually at is really, I don't actually review the Eisenhower matrix itself very often because I've settled on a daily prioritization system. Is that, I take 15 minutes to 20 minutes on the front end of every day and say, what's the achievement? What's the goal for that day? Knock it out. I assign them, put them in their Pomodoro cycles accordingly and take care of it. And this ends up taking about 1 to 2 hours per week. So going back to my previous goal of if I could free up 1 to 2 hours, per day, this is something that could go towards a huge chunk of that, right? If I could cut this in half to saying 30 minutes or an hour a week, right? I mean, that immediately into my 6 hours to 12 hours per week gets me back 10 to 20% of that goal. So I think that there's a level of refinement here that I can do of when do I plan and when do I revisit and or review the overall prioritization? So that's one of my 2025 goals, is to have that system, I think, pretty nailed down. Now, the other one is I want to test out longer Pomodoro cycles. So the third one. So I mentioned Pomodoro cycles are huge for me from a sustainability standpoint. I love the longer spectrum that I've done now, which is 53 minutes on, 17 minutes off. Again, for those of you that don't know what a Pomodoro cycle is, so it is where you are focused work, not necessarily on a specific task, unless the task is big enough to fill the whole gap or multiple cycles, but focused work, no breaks, no distractions, no nothing for X amount of time, and then you have Y amount of break. And the break has to be completely analog, disconnected, no screens, little to low stimulus or no stimulus at all from a mental perspective. So right now I operate on 53 minutes of work, 17 minutes off. And I'd like to experiment with longer Pomodoro cycles because my thought process is, so the reason I like the 53 minutes over the traditional 25 and 5 or even some like 30 and 5 and 30 and 6, the big thing for me was I frequently on the shorter cycles ended up midstream too often. Like my working time cut off before I got to a nice milestone, a nice end stage, or even completed the task entirely. So by going longer, I think that will consistently reduce that more and more and more. Not that I have that uber frequently now, but it still does happen. The second piece is because the 17-minute break is wonderful for so many things. I mentioned, meditation, breath work, yoga, etc. There's a bunch of different things that you can accomplish in those 17 minutes that are truly recharging, self-care, and preparing you for that next 53 minutes. There is a possibility that going longer here allows better benefits, and in the end actually provides more working time because you are having longer periods without the breaks. So I want to experiment with this and just kind of test out some other different ratios and longer Pomodoro cycles. And that's just going to be nothing other than trial and error. All right, so getting into number 4. So one of the things that I read in 2024 was Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson. And really, while this is an entrepreneurship-specific book, what I love about it is ultimately trying to get you to overcome your activation energy to just get started before you think you need to. And so his concept is, look, get ready, do minimal prep that you need, then take your action, then refine. And it really just, for me, I'm someone who I historically will spend weeks or months researching and learning before taking action. And the amount of progress I've been able to make since, really, I guess to some degree, taking that to heart, but really reading that book in 2024, I feel like I've accomplished so much more. So in 2025, I think that this is going to be a year of significant output for me. I plan on doing a lot of my input changes, optimizations, etc., really in Q1. Then I can spend Q2, Q3, Q4 just straight up showing up, adapting, and learning organically in real time. And I think that 2025 is going to be that focus on output and a lot less input. I think that's the season of life that I'm in. When I look at my professional day job of being a senior manager in IT, I know what I need to go to director from a business acumen, communication, and operations standpoint. When I look at my business and the career coaching, I know what I need to do in terms of marketing and sales and content generation. And in my personal life, I know what I need to do in order to make the couple moves that I have between actually moving across the country, being able to rent out this current house and also improve, my relationship, my marriage, and, because that is a continuous effort as well. So I know what I need to do between the back half of 2024 and a lot of things I've learned, a lot of things I've queued up. So 2025 is going to be a year of just execution, straight up output. So I think identifying this for you can also be super key. Is what do you need to do in 2025 to be successful? Do you need input or do you need output? This is going to be the next tactic. Number 5 is going to be something that on a very small, minute scale was game changing in 2024. And it just is going to piggyback on what I was saying there. which is consistency trumps intensity. 2024 is probably my best fitness year I've ever had. I am, I cannot go back and, sit there and audit myself exactly because I'm not like a notebook workout guy. But it had to be a handful of weeks. So I mentioned that I work out 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Handful of weeks that were 4 days or less, and maybe, double handfuls, that were 5 or less. So pretty consistently, I achieved that 5 or 6 days. And even when I didn't, I would generally make it up the next week. So if I did hit 4 days, then I would be looking to do 7 days, so effectively 14 days straight. If I only hit 5 days and not 6, then I'd look to do 7 the next week. So by and large, my estimation is I ended up somewhere between 5 and 6 average workout days per week. And I consider that a huge win. And I have had the best gains, the best aesthetic that I actually want, and the results that I want. And because I don't necessarily work out to be jacked. I work out so that the rest of my physical life being outdoors is just easier. And I've gotten those results. And that just goes back to consistency trumps intensity. I focused on the fact that this is my workout. Now, the second thing was I entered 2024 from a day job career perspective, not where I wanted to be. I was at an organization that I did not feel valued. I was at an organization that I wasn't really growing very much. And so at the end of 2023, I actually went on a job search strategy, and the market effectively told me I wasn't valuable. I sent out roughly 70, 80 applications as an IT manager or director and got one call. One call. So we're talking a fraction, I guess a little over 1% response rate. Atrocious. So I took 2024 and had to put my head down and get my hands dirty in a lot of operational changes, departmental changes, business acumen, etc. And from that time in December of 2023, just consistently showing up, refining, optimizing, having difficult conversations, etc. September of 2024 is when I went back into the job hunt and job search strategy. I ended up with a 12% response rate and 5 simultaneous offers. We're talking a 9 months difference because of the amount of results that I can now show on my resume, the impact I was able to make through just consistently making change, continuous improvement inside my department's operation at my company. That changed my market value exponentially. So what that's going to look like in 2025 is exactly what I just said in the bullet point before, focusing on output. I'm anticipating some changes, pretty big optimizations and automations in my life in Q1. But then I'm really looking at 2025 to just show up for the other 3 quarters of the year. And by show up, I don't just mean be a box checker, but actually just be there every day, critically think, critically evaluate, and organically grow with all of the information I've acquired over the last 12 to 24 months and the amount of prep work that I've done coming into 2025. And so from a IT management perspective, I really need to continue to hone in on my business acumen. And I'm now leading a team of software developers, which is not my traditional career path. So I need to learn a little bit in that domain to be a little bit more effective. I also need to keep identifying the people in my life and the people that I'm learning from. Do I want them in my life? And do I want to keep learning from them? Or am I at a stage where maybe some of them I stop learning from and I either need to find new sources or focus more on the sources that are still ahead of me? And then from the business perspective, I need to expand my content creation. So I will be posting on all of the major platforms starting in 2025. So right now I'm just doing LinkedIn and YouTube. I will be expanding to X and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. So I will be on all the major platforms. So those are my tactical changes that I'm going to have it done by Q1. And then it's just show up, execute, do your job, and evaluate and critically and organically grow. Next tactic that I'm carrying into 2025 that I think will be useful for all of you guys as well is solve one problem at a time. And this is something where the Pomodoro cycles really show you how important this is. With the amount of distractions we have in our life today, cell phone notifications, Teams or Slack pings, We got meetings being scheduled. We got, I work in IT. And so with that, you have crises out of nowhere. Hey, this building went down. Hey, the internet went down. Hey, this cloud application isn't accessible, right? It's in a world of technology and chaos and more distraction than ever before. Don't just simply give yourself the time to focus, because that's step one. But then actually focus on solving one thing at a time, because we are not multitaskers. Humans are single thread, single focus things. You have to by putting time into this, you are taking away time from this. And so with that, solve this problem, then that problem, then that problem. Recently, really what solidified this for me was not only my own experience of looking at 2023 and 2024, what I was able to get done across all three realms of my life: personal, professional, and business owner. And I was able to do a lot of that by solving one thing at a time. But whether you love him or hate him, one of the things that I took away very recently about people talking about Elon Musk and how he's able to manage all of his companies is, my understanding, what he does is he goes around to each company rotating 1 week at a time. He goes there for the week and says, what is our bottleneck? What's our biggest problem? Let's solve it in this week. And then goes to the next one, and then goes to the next one, and then goes to the next one, and then goes to the next one. And he may not be the one actually solving the problem every single time, but he is going there to use his big brain, bring all the people that affect this solution in play, and say, let's solve this now. And that way he is always consistently every week working on the biggest problems in his companies that are also then the biggest problems for his customers. And when you have somebody that is that level of achieving and that is their mode of operation, and then when you start to do it in your life and you just see the impact and those results, it's just hard to ignore. So I really need to refine one thing at a time. I'm going to do this till completion and then go to this. And that way I can also facilitate the correct prioritization. This is the biggest rock of my life right now. Solve this rock, break it down, destroy it before going to the next one. So that's going to be a tactic that I'm really, really heavily focused on in 2025, especially since my focus is output. Take things to the finish line and then move on. The last thing I'm going to do, and I will give full credit here, I am going to steal this from Layla Hormozi, which is forcing meetings into certain time blocks. Meetings, a lot of the times, just time sinks. And when you get into leadership, they're even more so. And especially if you work for a small company, sometimes in leadership, you're still being a level of doer in some capacity. You may not necessarily be, if you're director of sales, you may not necessarily, be out, traveling and making the sales pitch, right? Or at least not maybe the level 1 sales pitch. Or if you're a CTO, a chief technology officer, you're maybe not necessarily coding the application that you are running the company for, right? But from time to time, you do have to get your hands dirty and get involved, maybe for a special client or a special project, or offer your insight into something. And just meetings kill this. And going back to the Pomodoro cycle, so one of the refinements that I have here that I want to do is I mentioned that I really like having, not the Pomodoro cycles, working out for me. I typically almost always do around 11 a.m. on any given day. And this really allows a nice clean cut of 3 to 4 hours in the morning before. And then, I have the rest of the time after. And it creates a great segmentation in my day. And what I like about this forcing meetings into certain time blocks, it allows you to do that same thing again. And to me, the idea here would either be, putting the meetings at the beginning, middle, or end of day. And what I'm really thinking about doing is extending that workout segmentation and having that be that effectively 11 to 12, but then having all of my meetings from 12 to 4. So then I know, hey, I got these 3 or 4 hours uninterrupted beginning of the day. Then, I have up to 5 hours of just meetings, organizing, coordinating, working out, etc. Boom. Right? Then I go right back into my Pomodoro cycles. And so I have a true segmentation of my day, which should cause less gear switching. It's not this, I have, I have this focus period, and then coming out of the focus period, oh, wait, I can't do my break because I have a meeting or whatever it is. It allows you to really optimize and hone in your focus periods. And I think that this is just going to be huge for less gear switching, less thinking about, again, what to do. That was the biggest takeaway for having TickTick in the second brain application. I think this is just going to facilitate all of those things that I discovered about something like a TickTick and prioritization and the Eisenhower matrix and all of those. And this is just going to take it to the next level, because I can say, this is what my beginning of day, this is what my middle of day, and this is what my end of day is. And I can say that on every single day. So it's going to reduce chaos and the schedule flux and really facilitate effective Pomodoro cycles with those breaks for that sustained continuous output. So again, tactics that I am doing for myself and that I hope might work for you or give you a little bit of inspiration going into 2025 is going to be switching gears and focusing a little bit more on optimization versus maximization in the hope to free up somewhere between 1 and 2 hours a day going into 2026 for then more maximization. Refinement of my reevaluating my Eisenhower matrix and my prioritization system and my planning. Am I planning on a daily or a weekly basis? And try to reduce the amount of time I'm spending right now planning per week, which is about 1 to 2 hours per week. Looking at longer Pomodoro cycles, seeing if having maybe a little bit longer break and a little bit longer work period continues that trend of having less midstream interruption and midstream end product, and having more consistent things across the finish line within a Pomodoro cycle, and then longer breaks to facilitate more actual self-care. Then consistency trumping intensity. Just once I'm at the stage of input is done, changes are done, just show up and watch the organics happen and organically change, adapt, and move. And that couples with the fact that focusing on actions for 2025 for me is key. I think I have enough knowledge. I've gained enough inputs in 2023 and 2024 that 2025 is just my year of focusing on output and putting more energy there and less on input. Solving one problem at a time. And then lastly, force meetings into a certain time blocks. So these are going to be my strategies and tactics moving into 2025 to continue the path of success that I have had in all three realms that I would recommend you guys look at, potentially entertaining. And if you have any questions, or if you want to talk about maybe what you're going to be doing in 2025, what you are going to be changing here immediately to impact your life, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. I love to create this community where we are all just spitballing ideas on how to excel ourselves forward and be able to cherry pick the best ideas from all of us out there and turn ourselves into the best professionals and make our aspirations become our story together, because none of us are finished products. So again, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when all of my content comes out. And until next time, I appreciate you joining me today. And also, Happy New Year 2025 officially. Thank you, everybody.